Emilio. Hey, congratulations on your new film, Another Day in America.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
More of a congratulations just recently showcased at CineQuest and the upcoming Boston International Film Festival. How does it feel for you about this?
It feels great because it's been like a long journey, and I'm glad that we're at the like I told someone the other day. I mean, I'm not done until I sell it. I have a really great sales company selling it, and I look forward to like being able people to be able to just purchase it online or wherever they who knows where it ends up, but hopefully it ends up somewhere, right? And I told someone I feel like I'm in the fourth quarter. Now the fourth quarter is halfway over, and I'm almost there. I'm almost at the end of the game.
I I'm pretty sure that you'll get distribution for it, and not to mention more film festivals down the road. But Emilio, let's ask that initial question: is where the original idea came from for Another Day in America?
Um, Again, this is a spoiler alert. I have to spoil it. You've watched it, obviously. This movie is inspired by a mass office shooting that happened in 1999 at a company called Edgewater Technology. It's inspired. It has nothing to do with that shooting. And what really hit me was in 1999, I'm not some mass shooting expert, but I know you had Columbine, and it probably had like Virginia Tech maybe was there, or like maybe the Aurora ones. I don't know which one, but it was always about the shooter. You never really thought of the victims. Uh, and this is the first time I thought of the victims. Not only because it was one town away from my hometown, it's because it was day after Christmas. And for me, it was always kind of like, oh, wow, those people were in the office day after Christmas, and they probably came into the office with some sort of Christmas baggage, right? Like I wish I made lasagna and not ham, or like I wish my husband wasn't so cheap, or my husband's the greatest guy in the world, or whatever. I wish my kids liked their gifts, whatever it was. I can't. It's not a normal day, and so I knew when I wrote it, I wrote backwards. I knew I wanted that. I knew I wanted it to be come out of nowhere because all office shootings come out of nowhere. I wanted it to be. I had to lead its way to the end culturally. I couldn't have the Big Short and then have it end in an office shooting. And I wanted an event to lead into like a personal event, which was the party that we don't see the night before in the office. So really, that was it. And the title came to me, and I wrote 50 pages the first night.
Wow.
It was all dialogue, though. Like it was all dialogue. Trust me, there was no prose and there was no spell check. But at that point, when I get that, it's really like I'm channeling it. And I just let it rip. And I'm not saying like, listen, like you write 50, you keep 30, right? Like eventually, who knows what I kept, right? But that energy is important to my writing process to keep it on the page. And I literally wrote New Year's Eve, right? So I wrote New Year's Eve, and I wrote through New Year's Eve. So I started like first hour and a half was somewhat of like a writing block thing, but then once I got the title, I ripped, and I wrote through New Year's. I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, it's probably like 2 a.m. and it was like closer to 5. So I never checked my clock. I knew I just wrote through New Year's. So, and this was December 2020 into 2021.
Okay, so you're really dedicated in the subject, but tell us about your approach to make it as a dark comedy rather than like on such a serious subject.
I knew that I had to keep people's attention to the end because to me, this is the ending's the movie to me. Like everything else is just, me honing in on a craft and just trying to make it um as interesting as a podcast, right? You ever listen to a 2-hour podcast with like just two guests? It's just like you're listening to it. So to me, it had to have that kind of feel, right? So I just wanted people interested. So if I could make them laugh, make them angry, piss them off, like they pick a side, whatever, you know what I mean? Like I know I had to keep your attention. A lot of it's just natural. I'm kind of like one of the investors asked me. He goes, when I talked to you, I didn't because he's like, I thought you kind of like a lame dude, right? And he goes, I go, but I really laughed a lot in this film, and I'm not funny, but I'm sure if we had a drink, like I'd make you laugh a few times, I guess. But yeah, it's just style and my voice. I mean, you could read other things that I've written and you'd be like, oh, I see it there. Like, and I see how he is as a writer. But it was just to kind of keep your attention. I didn't do it purposely, I think. Just try to find other elements to kind of keep you engaged until I get to the end. So yeah, that's it.
So, I mean, have you ever worked in an office environment yourself? I mean, because you crafted a lot of different type of characters for this film, and I just wanted to know how you drew these characters up to the forefront for yourself.
I know I wanted them to stand in some sort of uh, like something that we've seen, right? Like there's like a theme to every character in a way. And I don't know exactly what I could say, like, oh, well, there's perversion and, that's mental illness. I wanted things to represent it. And when I found like an in, I used it. But it's really interesting. Like, I didn't outline this. I normally outline everything. Like, there's no genre to this. There's no act breaks. There is, but it's not the typical 3 act, 5 turning points. You need this at the end of act 1. You need this like, this is very much, I use these kind of episodic moments to say, all right, this episode. And I did that after the fact. I started carving them out, like, after I kind of wrote this kind of mess of a screenplay, which was my first draft. But I just let him talk. I really did. I said, like the beginning of the film, it didn't begin like that. That wasn't the beginning of the film. Like, that actually happened later. It was weird. So, and there's a lot of things that just stayed and didn't stay. I mean, I wrote my first version of the script like in 2 weeks, but I didn't send out the script until about a month or two after that. So I just honed it in, and then I would find moments. I'm like, oh, maybe this guy's like this, and this person's like that. I was just trying to represent as many things as I could in such a short period of time. Like, if this was called 1 Week in America or another week in America, then we would open up more people and more ideas and more personalities and behavior based on those personalities. So it was just kind of what I used, and I kind of kept it there. And I felt like I had to, like, I feel like movies lose in real time to the internet. So a lot of this is internet banter. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
you can kind of see it on like Twitter or a podcast or whatever. So I kind of wanted to pierce into that a little bit. None of this is intentional, by the way. This is like my second, third, fourth, fifth drafts. My first draft, I just let it rip, let him talk. Let him talk.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
because I want to point out, like, the toxic work environment, you managed to update it to for the 2020s here, of this decade rather than 1999. Because I was telling someone the other day was that, the idea of gun violence in America in the 1990s was very, very different, and for different reasons. I was explaining to someone about the term going postal was because back in the 1990s, there was a
Yeah.
lot of post office shootings because there was a lot of disgruntled workers. But
Yeah.
that was, and someone asked me, like, there were post office
Yeah.
shootings, and because that's unheard of today. But but you managed to update it for for this film for today's subjects.
Yeah, like I like, this movie is is a mass. That's the movie. Like, I'm always at Cinequest. I was on stage. I said, to make no mistake about it, I made a movie about a mass shooting. Like, everything else is like, I don't want to discredit what I did, but it's a smokescreen, and I didn't do it. So, like, that's for the audience. If you like Greg, if you like Tracy, if you like Joe, if you like whatever, I have no opinion on that. I just use the craft, which goes back to the Greeks, right? This is like a stage, right? I have 2 actors, 2 characters. They have to, both have to be formidable. I'm the referee. I'm not the judge.
Now, tell us about the cast that you actually brought in for your film. You actually have a few named casts in your film, which is as an independent film, this is such a boon for yourself.
Yeah, well, first, I mean, I made the movie for less than 4, more than 3. Probably closer to 3 than 4. I mean, that's really nothing. I mean, like, really, like, and I wore a lot of hats too, which if I get to direct again, I don't want to wear those hats. But yeah, like Richie, I produced and wrote. I produced and got a writer's credit, I should say, on another movie years ago, and Richie was in that film, Paul Victor. So I reached out. I mean, listen, the script really attracted anyone who ever read the script was always attracted to it. from the DP to other producers that were never involved. I mean, at one point we were trying to make this movie for $3 million and I wasn't going to direct it. And I never really wanted to direct it. When I wrote it, I didn't write it to direct it. Like I said, oh, I want someone else to direct this. But the cast, just local hires, people that I knew locally that could act, people that supported, and I just, kissed them in. The Richie, Paul, Brian. Brian's a friend for like years. He's a Boston actor. Brian Goodman, Natasha. Oliver really helped. I got Oliver through a friend. So just me networking. I mean, I've been kicking around this business for so long. I got lucky in meeting some people. But Alexis was through Oliver. Natasha was through Oliver. Oliver's through a producer friend of mine. I knew Richie and Paul personally, and I knew Brian personally. And I knew Preston and Joey. Deuce Man and Joe. They're friends of mine. They're like. I have friends that worked in like Friday Night Lights, the TV show, through a friend of mine, another actor friend of mine. So yeah, just networking. I mean, this whole thing was like me shaking out the bag and see what I had left in the bag, so I can piece everything together, right? Like everything had at least one connection or two to somebody, at least 1 degree separation, or the most 1 degree, or personally I knew.
And what about this office that you actually commandeered for the background for Another Day in America? And how long did you film in that? Was it challenging?
It was, because what I wrote in my head wasn't what I, you know what I mean? Like, so I had to kind of like just like compromise. And I didn't realize how expensive it was to really like make an office look like lived in and full. So, and I tried my best to kind of, you see a lot of close-ups because I couldn't, if I had a wider frame, then you could see, I didn't have enough money to fill it in. But I got lucky. One of the executive producers knew the landlord. He got me in, got it for real cheap, like dirt cheap, like favor cheap. And I got to shoot. I had it for a month. So we prepped and shot. Actually, I might have had it for 2 months. I'm sorry. Yeah, I prepped and shot, but I shot 15 days, then broke, and then shot for Christmas, and then like the whole break basically, and then I shot 3 days in January, so 18 days total.
Wow.
Yeah.
Emilio, let me wrap it up with one last question.
Yeah.
Obviously, people watch this is a comedy, but of course, eventually it will take a dark turn because of the subject matter. Did you debate about the ending amongst yourself on how you wanted to end this film?
No, I always knew I wanted to end it. I knew the ending. I knew I wanted to come out of nowhere. I had all these rules built in. So I actually literally wrote myself. I wrote myself into a corner, and I had to write myself out. And the only reason why there's any comedy or anything or any like, it was literally to keep your attention for the end. I wanted you to like, I have to keep you engaged or you're just going to turn it off. And hopefully I didn't offend too many people, because it's an offensive film. I think but that's part of being an American. It's actually like my connection to the audience is like being offended, kind of being like an American now, right? So
Yeah.
I don't purposely do it. I think the DNA of America is in there in some capacity. I told, it's called One Day in America. If I had a week, then it would be different, right? But
That is true. That is true. Well, Emilio, thank you very much for speaking to us about Another Day in America. This film here certainly has a message, and your message comes across very clearly all
I
the way.
appreciate you watching it. I really do. I mean, small film, you got to, see what happens, right?
That is true. So
All right.
thank you very much, Emilio.
Thank you very much.